Every case is different, and we don't know all the facts about this one. But we do know that a black 16-year-old girl, Ma'Khia Bryant, was shot to death by a police officer in Columbus, Ohio. Questions about the use of force here are very different, since, in a series of clips from police body cam video, the girl is seen holding a knife during a tussle with another young woman. An officer arrived at the scene and opened fire when the girl appeared to attempt to stab a second woman. The moments before the shooting captured on the officer's body cam. And I wish that this were the last time that I'd have to warn you. It is graphic.
Hey! What's going on? What's going on? Hey! 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 Get down! Get down! Get down! Get down!
No! You ain't shoot my baby! You shot my baby! Are you
Move up.
Are you stupid? She shot.
Back up.
Is she shot?
She had a knife. She just went at her.
She's a idiot, man. Baby shot. Damn, are you stupid?
Hold on. I told you to take my life. I told you to take my life.
Get I'm on my chair. I'm telling you now. That shouldn't even be.
The city's public safety director saying this.
We don't yet have those answers. But these are some of the questions that are asked and addressed in disciplinary hearings that come before me. As Chief Woods has indicated, a fully independent investigation is being conducted by BCI. The results will be public. So I plead with the community, let us not rush to judgment. As I said last night, fast facts should not come at the cost of complete and accurate facts. The loved ones of Ma'Khia Bryant have my most sincere sympathies, and we as a community should wrap them in love, and we should allow the process to play out. Thank you.
People are anguished watching another video like this, and I get it. But even in our anguish, we cannot abandon the responsibility we have to be fair. And even while our hearts are hurting, we have to judge each incident based on what we see and the facts we know. When I look at this video, I see police responding to a dangerous incident where someone is armed with a knife. Police have walked up on a situation, they need to figure out what's happening. Other lives are in danger. If we're going to discuss this case, we need to be honest and use our common sense. We cannot have a double standard. We have to acknowledge that police have jobs to do. But with people dying every day, we've got to find a pathway to justice, a roadmap to take this country to where we need to be, to liberty and justice for all. And we may be taking the first steps on that pathway right now. The Attorney General, Merrick Garland, announcing a sweeping DOJ investigation that goes beyond George Floyd's case to investigate the Minneapolis Police Department itself, where Derek Chauvin worked.
Today, I am announcing that the Justice Department has opened a civil investigation to determine whether the Minneapolis Police Department engages in a pattern or practice of unconstitutional or unlawful policing.
The investigation will dig into whether the Minneapolis Police Department uses excessive force, including during protests, or engages in discriminatory conduct. Minneapolis police leadership pledging to cooperate now. But it is up to our elected officials in Washington to rise to the task, too. It has been almost a year since George Floyd died, and Congress has yet to pass a single police reform bill. They've yet to strike a deal on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which would ban chokeholds and no-knock warrants, mandate deadly force be used only as a last resort, and ban racial and religious profiling by law enforcement. That is happening as a president. Joe Biden is set to discuss police reform in his first address to a joint session of Congress in a week from tonight. We still have a lot of work to do. Yes, let's celebrate for George Floyd's family. But let's also honor his memory by opening our eyes to systemic injustice in this country. The verdict in that Minneapolis courtroom was not the end. It's just the beginning. Ohio is tough. It is really, really, really tough. Yeah.
You know, you were really, actually, to be honest, let's let the audience into something. So Don and I heard about this story last night on social media while we were doing coverage for you of the Chauvin verdict last night. And the initial reports didn't seem right. And it was so interesting for me, as emotional and personal as these stories are to someone of color, especially Don, you with your background, you were cautious about it. You were saying, I want to see this one. I want to see this. Because there was a lot of emotion, and understandably so. You got a 16-year-old kid that's gone.
Yeah.
And it's a hard one. I do not know how to explain this to people in a way that doesn't make somebody very angry.
Well, yes, and we're dealing with a lot of emotion right now, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And I think that is, it's real, and you have to take that part has to be taken into account. There's a lot of anguish. People are very emotional right now, but we've got to be fair about what happens when police arrive at scenes. It is tragic that it's a 16-year-old girl, just as it is tragic that it's a 13-year-old in Chicago. When police are chasing people, they don't know how old they are. And they don't run and say, hey, how old are you? Oh, I'm 13. You know, my mom let me, that you don't know that. Or I'm 16. When they roll up on a scene, they see people tussling around, someone has a knife, and their job is to protect and serve every life on that scene. And if they see someone who is in the process of taking a life, what is that decision? What decision do they have to make? And I know that people say, well, you know, you could do this, you could do that. Tasers don't work the way guns work.
Not at that distance.
Not at that distance.
And not with that amount of time.
Yeah, right. Tasers, then they don't always connect. So you've got to get, you know, 2 prongs or what have you, and it's got to connect or whatever. But I see it. If the woman in the pink was my sister, niece, wife, whatever, you have to make a decision. Is one life on that scene more valuable than another? And if someone is trying to take a life on that scene, do you protect the life of the person trying to take the life, or do you protect the life of the person whose life is in imminent danger at that point? That's why I'm not a police officer, but when I look at that, as I said, it is tough because one is a 16-year-old. I don't know how old the other person is, but the other person's life was in imminent danger. And as you know, from the hostile environment training that we get on this job, and because of our proximity to law enforcement, that at a certain distance, a stabbing, a knife can be much more lethal than a bullet. And especially if you get stabbed in the artery, in the temple, somewhere that you're going to bleed out.
Look, I feel for you always feel for everybody involved. Sometimes I don't feel for certain parties as much as others, but I feel for that officer. You could hear it in his voice when he said, you know, the man on the side was saying, you know, you shot my baby, and he said she had a knife, she went right at her. You know, this is something that he's going to have to live with also. Yeah. I did have one person make one good point that I hope doesn't come across offensive, because certainly it's not the way I mean it.
No, but this is what people are talking about. This is what people, because again, we weren't on the scene.
No.
And even before you say that, Chris, even in the slowed down version, the slow-mo version, that slowed version was a second.
Right.
Imagine in real time how fast it's happening. You're like looking around like, what is going on? Someone call the police.
Right.
And you see someone with a knife and they're trying to stab the other person. And you're like, what do you do? The taser doesn't work that fast. What do I do?
Right.
Right? And so you've got to, what you see is a life that is in jeopardy, in imminent jeopardy at the moment. I don't know. Yeah, that man is right. You shot my baby. And he is in grief and in pain. I get that. And the other person could have been bleeding out on the sidewalk as well. And either way, in that position, I think that someone's life probably would have ended. It could have been the other woman in the pink, or it could have been the 16-year-old who sadly ended up dying.